Hello and welcome to Froggity Frog Crochet. Let's look at how we make this really quick, easy hot pad pattern that is double-sided and will never burn your fingers. To make this really easy hot pad, you're going to need 50 grams of worsted or Aran weight cotton yarn, must be cotton, a 4mm hook. You can go up a hooker size if you find that too difficult, but the tighter the stitches, the better, and a darning needle. And that's all you need to make this quick and easy pattern.
Let's talk hot pads. So I love my hot pads. I've been using them for years, as you can tell by the staining. So this isn't a pattern I just keep hidden away in a drawer after I've made it. These are things I use every day in my own kitchen. This is my oldest one. It really does need some bleach going in with it. And this is the one I originally made for the pattern that I have on my website. So I'm finally getting around to making a video for it, but this is the one that I made for that pattern, and it is very well used. I must have written the pattern originally about 5, 6 years ago, and it's been well used ever since. And I have several others as well, some nice bright colours, and I use them all. They're great for taking things out of the oven. I find oven mitts really clunky and kind of don't protect my hands very well. I have never ever burnt my hands using these. See, they're nice and thick, made with Aran or worsted weight cotton. It must be cotton that you use because cotton is heat resistant. It doesn't melt, and now you can get them cotton in all beautiful kinds of colours and prints. These hot pads are super easy to make, and I'm going to show you how here in this video.
Okay, so for this hot pad, I'm still using Rico Cotton Creative, but I'm using a plain colour rather than the prints. And this yarn calls for a 4 to 5mm hook. So I'm going to use my 4mm. So I've got my clover and more. I'm using a hook on the low side of what it calls for, simply because I want a really dense hull-free fabric. So we don't want that heat seeping through. So we want a really dense, really close stitch fabric. So Rico Cotton Creative. I love this yarn. It's quite, for a cotton, it's non-mercerized, but it's fairly cheap. So this is on the budget end of cotton, so it makes it really affordable. And we're pretty much going to use the entire ball of yarn to make this hot pad. So to get started, let's find the end of my yarn. I did pull this out of the middle in advance to make sure I could find the end. And let's get to it. One of the best things about this pattern is that you don't need stitch markers because we're just going to be going around in circles. Okay, so to start your hot pad, you're going to make a foundation chain of 41. 2, 10, 2, 25, 40 of 41. So we have a nice chain. So you can make this shorter or longer as you wish. So your hot pad is going to end up, this is the diagonal, okay? So you'll end up with a hot pad that length on the diagonal. Right, so after we made our foundation chain, in the second chain from your hook, you're going to make a single crochet. And then you're just going to make a single crochet in each stitch across. So this pattern is super easy. It's super easy to make bigger or smaller. You just make a longer or a shorter foundation chain. The size of this is entirely dictated by the size of your foundation chain. So you just knock some chains off. There's no minimum stitch count, so you can use as many or as few chains as you choose. And we just make single crochet all the way down. So we made a foundation chain of 41, started in the second chain from my hook. So by the time I get to the end, I will have 40 stitches, all single crochet. So you can make this pattern up in an hour or two in the evening, so it's really quick to make and so practical as well. I mean, you saw the state of my hot pads. I use these all the time in my kitchen. I use them to take things out of the oven. I use them for hot pan lids and handles. I use them to put hot pans down on my surfaces. And they take all the abuse they're given. I mean, the yarn says you shouldn't tumble dry, but I throw these in the tumble dryer all the time after washing. And they come out just fine. If anything, the tumble drying helps compact them down even more, which just makes them more heat resistant. And I've never burnt my hands with these at all. So I would never use oven mitts again, because I have burnt my hands a couple of times on oven mitts. I found with that wadding they've got inside, they just don't stand up to punishment. And they just don't last as long. I mean, I've been using these for years and I've never had to throw one away yet. So super durable, super heat resistant. What's not to love? Okay, so getting to the end of this foundation chain. Get some more yarn. And I'm going to make a single crochet in the last chain. So now we're going to start working on the other side of the chain. Now, normally if you're working into both sides of a foundation chain, you're going to make an extra stitch for the turn. We're not going to do that because we want to make this fold in on itself. Instead, we're just going to go straight to the other side of the stitch we just worked on. So the other side of the foundation chain, there is no extra stitch for the turn, and make a single crochet. And then make a single crochet in every stitch on the other side of your foundation chain. Okay, so if you just pull it apart, you can see where your hook's going to go. It's going to go where those two strands of yarn cross over and to the other side. So if I just go back to that, you can see there's a little pocket forming. See how the yarn has folded up because we didn't make extra stitches for the turn, and that's what we want. This is how you get two sides of your fabric made without ever having to sew things together. We're going to be exploiting this to make pockets, so we're essentially making both sides of our fabric in one go just by ignoring the turn. So that's where those two strands of yarn cross, and then your hook goes in between. And that's how you work on the other side. And this now is essentially what you do. All you're going to do is work in every single stitch. Keep going round and round. You don't slip stitch when you get to the original first stitch. You just keep working single crochets into the next stitch. Round and round and round, and the pockets will start to form. And those pockets are both sides of your hot pad. So it's going to be a double thickness with zero sewing involved. Well, you're going to have to whip stitch the two sides together once you finish, but that's the extent of it. So really, really easy, minimal stitching, and you just get to mindlessly crochet around and around. So this is a really great pattern to make just sat in front of the TV of an evening. Works up in an hour or two, depending on how big you make your hot pads. And super simple. So let's get to the other end of the other side of this foundation chain. and the first stitch that we started with. And I'll show you how we just carry on beyond that first stitch. Almost there. So we're getting to the end. Right. So that's the last stitch there. So that's the turning chain. So that's the first chain with ignoring that. That's the first stitch of the row there. Okay, so I'm just going to work into this last stitch. I'm ignoring this because that's the chain. We don't want to work into that. And I'm just going to work straight into that first stitch of the row. Again, not worrying about turning chains and adding extra stitches. Just going to go into the next stitch and then keep going. This is what makes this pattern so easy. You just keep making single crochet all the way around. And there's that next pocket starting to form on the other side. So here's our foundation chain being worked on both sides. Don't worry about those holes in the middle, they will sort themselves out. I'm just going to keep going round and round. So I will come back once I've got a few more rows in and show you how it starts to develop as we keep going. But you just make a single crochet in the next stitch. No extras, no increases, no decreases, no nothing. Just single crochet in the next stitch. So I shall be back in a moment. Okay, so this is where I'm up to. I've done several rows now. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. Or rounds. Sorry, not doing rows, but doing rounds. And you can see that the corners are taking shape. And you get the nice point. Okay, and it just gets wider and wider as we go. And eventually you'll start getting the point on this side as well. Okay, but it's just, that's all that happens when you just keep going round. The quirky thing is that it folds over this way. So the front is inside. So at some point, we're going to turn it the right way round so that the right side shows out. I mean, you can do that as you go now if you want to. And actually turning it kind of inside out now, or the right way out now, is that it will make those stitches easier to work into. Because if you keep it this way as it's forming, these inside stitches do get a bit awkward to work into because of the way they're folded over. But just this side as well. But if you turn it the right way out, it just makes things a bit simpler to crochet. So those pockets will keep forming and I'll keep going, and they will eventually meet in the middle. Okay, so there's the other side with our starting chain. The best bit is that goes in the middle, so once it's sealed up, you don't actually need to weave in the ends either. So that will stay on the inside. But yeah, as these corners get bigger, they do meet in the middle and become a square. So I'm going to keep going and I shall see you in a second. And I'll show you how we sew it up. Okay, so I've got to the end. That is literally all the yarn that I have left in that ball I started with. And my hot pad it's a bit rectangular, but I don't mind. So how many rows you end up doing is going to depend on your gauge, really. I've got roughly 20 rows. So we started with 40 stitches in our foundation chain. And because this is made double-sided as you go, it turns into, if your stitches are square, you'll have 20 rows. But if your stitches are longer than wide, you make fewer. So how many rows in total depends on your gauge, and how square or rectangular it comes out as depends on how many rows you make. So, but I like it this way. So I don't mind that it's not completely square. It is what it is. So now we have to whip stitch this together. So do you have to whip stitch? Well, no. If you do it, it comes out like this. We've got a nice flat stitch. It's not raised at all. It's just nice and flat. This one, however, I slip stitched it. So I don't like sewing. So if I can slip stitch, I will. I can crochet instead. But that does leave this ridge. I mean, it's a hot pad. It doesn't affect its use at all. You can tell by the staining, I still use this quite a bit. But if you decide to slip stitch that opening shut, you just get that ridge. But the other side is nice and flat, and it doesn't affect its use in any way at all. But to get a nice neat finish, to get it nice and flat, then whip stitch it is. So first thing I'm going to do is I don't need this much yarn to whip stitch it. So I'm just going to measure, pull the yarn across, add a bit extra, and then cut off. Okay, so when you are finishing your rounds, you do want to make sure that your last stitch, oops, did I pull that up? You want to make sure that your last stitch goes into a corner here. And the only reason for that is that you don't have extra ends. So I can then just carry on using this to whip stitch without having to cut anything off. And I am all for fewer ends. So I'm just going to pull that through. So that's nice and secure. And now I can start to whip stitch. So I'll get my darning needle and just weave the end through. And all I'm going to do is go into every outside loop of every stitch. So pull through that way. Now the outside loop this way. And I'm just going to keep doing that. Backwards and forwards until I get to the other end. So thankfully this doesn't take too long. And so just use the else loop. So inside loop and then outside loop on both sides. And just keep running the yarn through. And that forces those inside loops down. So see what I've done there? It's down, it's flat, and just makes a nice even finish. So I'm going to continue that, and I will come back in a second when I've got to the other corner. And there we go. I've got to the end. So it's all nicely now whip stitched together. I've pulled it tight. So if you get any loose stitches down here, you can just pull the end and you can just pull it tight all the way down. Obviously you don't want it to scrunch up like that. So you can just pull it out and it will all be nice and tight. So all that's left to do now is to secure this end and weave it in. So I'm just going to pull it through the top a couple of times and just go through a couple of other stitches just to make sure it's not going to pop open. So the idea is that you pass it through this thread itself inside your work so that it kind of creates a knot that you can't see. The knot is inside the fabric. Okay, so because this is something that's going to be used, getting it super neat isn't that important. I'm just going to do that. And then needle off, cut off the end, and voila! One super easy, super quick pad. Only one end to weave in because the other end is inside and I left it there. Did not weave that end in at all, but because it's the beginning, it's not going to come out. And there we have it. So there's your beginning foundation chain that we just crocheted around and around to create one lovely hot pad with a nice, flat, even whip stitch join. And all done. Thank you for watching, and I would love to see your finished hot pads. Please let me know what you think, and come and show off your hot pads over in our Facebook group, Froggity Frogs Ribbons and Stitch. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more free crochet patterns, stitch guides, and crochet hints and tips as well. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time in the next video. Bye for now.